All right, recording is started, and this is the June 27th, 2024 Crossplane Community Meeting. As always, I will go ahead and drop a link directly into the Zoom chat right now. That is a direct link to the agenda document. If folks want to pop in there and either add yourself as an attendee or add an agenda item that you want to talk about, then that is open. And like the number of topics we have is actually not too much this time. So there should certainly be time for you for any topics you all want to get into today. All right, start at the top. So we met last time right around or maybe not too long after the 1.16 release was out. So we have not done a patch release yet on 1.16. I was considering doing a patch release for a potential performance regression in the Crossplane trace command, but that we found that performance regression is mostly affecting like local scenarios if you're using like a local kind or minikube cluster. But if you're using real production clusters, it doesn't seem to be affecting that type of scenario. So I decided not to proceed with the patch release for that. If there are other issues that folks want to get included in a patch, let me know. But I don't have anything tracking on my radar for 1.16.1 right now. So, oh man, that being said, there is a release that needs to get done for the functions SDK. There's been some great support added recently. Claymont added some support for credentials to be able to pass credentials or SDK helpers to pass credentials from Crossplane function pipeline machinery into your functions. That has not been released yet. So I want to get that released, but I think we're also waiting on a big PR from Dalton that will kind of wrap up the big feature he's been working on to be able to, from a function, be able to pass up or specify outcomes, events, error messages, etc., to back up to the claims. So that's been a lot of work that's been going on that. It's more than 1,000 lines changed in there. So we're waiting on that to get merged, which I think should be any second now, actually, then because Nick has approved it. Dalton's done the rebase, so that should be in there. And then we need to get a release of the SDK out. So I am happy to drive that one and just get that one out because I'm putting something together that's using the credential support as well. So expect that. But the function SDK for Python is not on my radar in terms of putting a release out for that one. The
Now it is.
credential support. What's that, Bob?
Now it is.
Is there a fix that's been merged for this, Bob, or is that outstanding, or what's the status of that one? I don't know that one.
Yeah, there's actually two things that were merged, I believe, yesterday. One is the credential support, and the other is a fix for Python 3.12 having basically event loop issues. So you couldn't run a composition function with Python 3.12. So those two things are in there, just waiting for release.
Well, Bob, that is awesome because I did not know that even happened. Okay, so these PRs came from you within the last 24 hours. So I didn't even know about that, which is kind of rare for me to not be aware of this kind of stuff. So let me real quick on another screen and a signed in account, see if I'm subscribed for updates and notifications on this repo. I might be missing this repo. Oh, yep. Okay. All activity now subscribed. Done. Cool. Okay, Bob. So, well, thank you for fixing those issues. So both credential support and then a fix for Python 3.12 are in there. They're merged, and we are ready to do a release, you say?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, all this is fixed. Thank you, Bob. Awesome, dude. Okay. Well, super, super thank you. Cool. Yep. So that's releases that I'm aware of in core crossplane repositories. We'll talk about providers in a little bit. So then let's go on to the next major milestone for crossplane, which is 1.17. So we're still tracking towards the typical quarterly cadence of releases. So early August will be the timeline that we're targeting here for this release. That means that there's a little bit over a month left to go. So for quarterly releases, 3 months, we're about 2/3 through the milestone there. So let's take a quick look at the actually, let's look at the roadmap. That'll maybe be useful to see the big top level things here. So this is the roadmap scope to 1.17. As we talked about, this major feature for that Dalton has been driving for a number of months now, to be able to surface specific errors and useful, meaningful errors from from your composition pipeline, from your functions, all the way back up to the claim. Should be, it's all, I think most all the PRs and core crossplane, runtime, the function SDK, all that stuff have been approved and they'll be ready to merge soon. So all this should be in the 1.17 timeline, available for folks to be able to use. I am going to be taking on the cloud changelog proposal as well, and hopefully get that in for 1.17 still. We haven't talked a bunch about this because I didn't think I'd have time to do it, but I do now have time to do it. So if folks want a quick refresher on this one, this is basically, Nick has a great write-up of it here, but it's basically a addition to some of the work we've done so far to support building confidence and trust in your platforms, that we did, with the early shift left developer experience, using the render command to be able to, in a tight loop, test your functions and your compositions and such. This is kind of the other side of the spectrum of helping to build confidence in your platforms, where you get more observability and insight into what the providers are essentially doing. So there will be kind of events. We need to do design documents on how they'll be exposed, but basically events for everything. You can think about this as kind of an audit log specifically for Crossplane providers, where every operation they perform, like an AWS RDS database creation, or a Cloud SQL database updates, whatever, all those will get caught into a change log basically. And so you'll have insight into everything that Crossplane's doing, especially considering like things that you maybe did not expect to do. So this is a major feature that we'll be driving in 1.17, and we're very early stages on it. So do expect a design document for folks to be able to weigh in on with their opinions in the near term future, so we can get this whole thing landed for 1.17. I'm saving this for a little bit later because we now have the LFX mentorship program going. And so we're getting a lot of cycles on improving validation in Crossplane as well. So that's going to be something in the roadmap that we may be able to promote that whole command to GA at the end of this milestone. Going to continue increasing the resources we have for contributing to Crossplane, of folks being able to get in and start building code and adding docs and all that sort of stuff. That's still a focus. I'm a little bit less confident about some of the other remaining ones. I think this roadmap issue here is something that can be very much divided and conquered. So, all of the end-to-end tests we have running on all of our PRs to help us build confidence in our changes and preventing regressions, there's a number of those that are not as reliable as we want. So I think that if folks are interested in taking on one or two, like focusing on one of these areas here of, oh, okay, this is where a test has been kind of flaky, and try to drive root cause and getting it to be a more reliable test, that's something that would be really helpful, because I don't have anybody who's really driving this right now. So that's certainly an area for community folks to get involved and have an impact here. Nick, for you, bud, I believe, at least anecdotally, that, or not anecdotally, because I think we have data about it, but I haven't been super on top of it. But since your big refactor of dynamic watches and controllers and whatnot, I feel like real-time composition stuff has been way more stable and not failing nearly as much. Have you checked that as well? Is that your take?
I haven't checked it. I definitely was optimistic, but
Hmm.
I went to all of the issues relating to real-time compositions and was like, hey, tell me if it's still broken, please. And at least one person came back and said, yes, it's still broken. So, but did you say, have you looked at the flaky tests? Like, are they not flaking anymore?
Yeah. I believe, like, I did not look in the last week or two, but I feel like if I recall correctly, that like for 2 weeks or so after you made that change, I was looking at it, and all those real-time composition ones, I do not remember them failing anymore when I was looking at the build pulse results.
Well, that's a good sign. I'd certainly like to bump that to V1 Beta 1 if in the next release, if no one is actively aware of any issues with it.
Cool. Yeah. That would be great. Great. And yeah, I mean, that's your changes there were fairly thorough and, touching a lot of parts there. So the more we can build confidence in it and get, a sense that it's working well, like the better off we are. So that'll be something, I think that'll be something to look at more completely, is examining these results a little bit more deeply and making sure that we're looking better there. Cool. What else is on people's minds for 1.17? We talked about this one for Dalton. This is also a big PR in flight as well to do like concurrency and parallelization for the Crossplane trace command, which massively speeds it up. So big kudos for taking on that one as well. What else is on people's minds for 1.17? Let's take a look at the board. That helps.
Sorry, Jared, I've only been half paying attention, so you might have mentioned this already, but definitely 117. One of the things that I'm working on a project for Upbound at the moment that isn't involving touching Crossplane very much, so I've got limited bandwidth to work on Crossplane this release. But one of the things that I was hoping to do was change composition functions to be V1 and potentially mark native patch and transform compositions as deprecated. I feel like tech-wise, it's ready to go. The main blocker for doing that is the docs all kind of talk about old school patch and transform composition as its sort of primary, as if that's kind of like the primary flow. So I think it's kind of like the bandwidth to go update the docs is the limiting factor there.
Are we sure that, because one of the things I was looking at with like patch and transform function is there's no like end-to-end tests. So like there's no like local Kubernetes environment that's spun up actually like validates that based on what I have as an input actually comes out. I didn't know if like that would be something we would want before that would go GA.
I think no, because we're not saying the new approach is everyone should use function patch and transform. We're just saying people should use functions. So then then there's the question of, okay, is function patch and transform like more special than other ones? So it requires an E2E test framework, or do all functions require an E2E test framework, or do some functions require an E2E test framework? It would be nice to have, but is it a blocker? I don't think so.
I wonder if at least the official ones should be, but like should have a end-to-end test suite, but
yeah. Potentially, frankly, we don't have a lot of people to work on them, so it's not like a no, we don't want to do that, but the community is going to have to step up and help with that if it wants to get done. Upbound doesn't have a lot of bandwidth to be building E2E test suites for the functions at the moment.
And I can see them as Nick was saying, kind of being decoupled, Blake, as well. Right, like functions, the machinery around functions and the general support of functions in Crossplane, we're getting pretty confident about that, and that machinery is tested in end-to-end tests. Correct, Nick?
Yeah, the function
okay.
is very much tested, but individual functions like function patch and transform, function go templating, function KCL, etc., don't have end-to-end test suites for them.
Yes, exactly. So we can, we've been gaining a lot of confidence in the function pipeline machinery stuff, but then we can kind of look at it as decoupled. Is function patch and transform itself, adding end-to-end testing like within that repo or whatever it may be, wherever that lives, could be some sort of big milestone for declaring that of I don't know which version is function patch and transform on right now? If you could, anyone refresh me, is it a 1 dot or is it a 0 dot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
X.
Cool. So yeah, maybe that's a milestone for the maturity of that specific function, as Nick was saying.
yeah, I'm just trying to think because like I totally agree. Like functions in general should be moved to GA. I just don't know if we should deprecate patch and transform until the alternative for native patch and transform is
I feel pretty strongly that patch and transform should be deprecated because we're in a pretty bad place at the moment where we're having to maintain two different stacks and we're kind of subtly telling everyone, hey, functions is the way forward. But if you go look at it, what you see is patch and transform is GA stable, etc. Function patch and transform or functions in general is not. So I think, look, in an ideal world, yes, I would love to have everything thoroughly tested and have this be like, I would love to do all the best practices, but the reality is like, unless we have community members stepping up and saying, I want to be a maintainer and I want to help like actually do this, then we have limited bandwidth to support all of this. So
I guess I would also question whether function patch and transform would necessarily be the default recommendation going forward, because
it definitely would not be, no. I
Yeah.
don't, there would, well, there's a couple of layers to this, right? I agree with Blake that like, there's multiple layers here, right? Like, the official functions are official from Upbound, the company, right? Like separate from the Crossplane project. So they're Upbound putting their stamp of approval on them. It's not the Crossplane project saying these functions are better or worse than others or whatever, right? So, but still from Upbound's point of view, it would be a good idea to have their official functions be as stable as possible and as thoroughly tested and as well maintained as possible. And that would involve things like E2E tests. From a crossplane perspective, where I eventually imagine this going is if you go through our docs flow and you're writing compositions, you would be presented with a set of options for what to do with functions, right? Like the writer composition page might have here's a couple of ways that you could do this. You could use GoTemplate, you could use KCL or Pickle or Q. And I do think for a lot of the, there's a ton of people out there who are like, I just write my function in Go, or I write my function in Python or whatever, in which case like E2E tests don't really come into it except for them writing their own. So in that world, I don't think the Crossplane project isn't blessing any function. It might bless some in that some might be sort of deemed popular enough to show up in the docs, but we're not saying those are the ones that everyone should use. We're just saying, there's options here. However, short term, here's one, again, limited bandwidth, right? Like if we do the minimum possible thing to get functions to V1, the minimum possible thing might be just going through the docs and finding every example that uses patch and transform and switching it to use function patch and transform, which is not a blessing of function patch and transform. It's just that is the smallest possible change to the docs to like get the docs using functions as kind of the main flow rather than deprecated patch and transform. But definitely where we are at the moment is we have people like trying to make contributions to patch and transform, like the native stuff, and then so it's sort of drifting from where functions are. They're like the function patch and transform and native patch and transform. We've got to try and keep their functionality in line, which is a pain in the butt to do. So I'd really like to sort of at least, we're not going to tear the functionality out or anything like that, but I would like to at least tell people we actively don't think you should use this. We're not adding new features to the native one anymore. That's why it's going to drift from like the function one sort of thing to at least take a step in the right direction.
Cool. So I just try to capture a few notes on that within the agenda doc inline here as we're kind of talking through it. Okay. And then Yortis was giving kind of a +1 on contributing to Crossplane being easier. And Yortis, you are absolutely the poster child for improved contributor experience with all of the effort that you've been through, and then with like upjet providers, and then contributing back the fixes to docs and stuff for the mistakes that you've run into. So super thank you for that. And you're a big supporter of that by experience, man. All right, so let's go ahead and move on then to the next section here on provider updates and whatnot. Jean, do you want to go ahead and take that one then for us?
Yes, I will do so for you. Let me just pull up the notes so I don't have to follow on the screen there. All right. So there's been quite a few updates that went out on the providers. I'm not going to kind of like verbatim read them, but folks can have a look at them there. We are, I wonder if this 1.3 is the one we just released like literally a few hours ago. And there's also another one coming out for AWS later today. So keep an eye out for that. The latest updates for provider Kubernetes and Helm are out as well. I don't expect us to be making any new releases there in the near term. I will also just mention that there are some server-side apply work there that we're kind of like considering whether to push forward. There's just one more consideration that Hassan, who started the work, is considering, just in terms of the performance of the approach he's got going there. It's that one there. And we might think it's good enough for now, so considering it's still an alpha feature in the provider day. But we're just kind of like debating that one still, and balancing kind of like other priorities. And then there's another kind of like provider release that was announced in the Slack channel for provider HTTP. All right. In terms of investments, so new documentation PR. Yeah, so there's that one is actually literally just waiting on me to do a final review, and then we'll merge that one. So it's updated documentation on how to add new resources to the object-based providers. And that should hopefully help community members who are willing to contribute to the providers but don't necessarily know where to start, to help them with better guidance. We also added some end-to-end tests for the provider configs in provider AWS recently, and that would just kind of like help ensure that we have better confidence when we make changes in those areas of the providers. And then specifically, one of the things we want to focus on, and this was actually brought up by Blake a while ago as well, is making sure that we're keeping these providers up to date with their upstream Terraform providers. So often there's bug fixes or new fields added or new resources, and we want to get to a point where we can make this as easy as possible through automation. Currently, with the outbound official ones, we've got a bit of a tricky one because we forked the upstream providers to enable them to run on the new architecture of Object 1.0. But we have some plans as well there. Just need to navigate some license concerns with the CNCF to make sure that we do all of those things in the right way. But the goal that we really want to achieve there is that anyone in the community should be able to follow a guide and run some GitHub actions to get the bulk of the work going, to update the upstream Terraform provider and be able to just kind of like know what to do next. So really want to make that as easy as possible. And then one of the ideas we'll also be looking at is, so when new resources come in, they don't actually get made available until they get configured and added specifically. And another good idea from Blake was to potentially open draft PRs for those new resources, so that they're pretty much there as best configured as you can get them, and then somebody just needs to go through them and do the final touches and testing and so on. So yeah, we also had quite a good conversation in the recent Object SIG meeting that was earlier this week, and folks can catch up on the recording in the SIG Object channel that's posted there. And then just a reminder, we no longer publish the monolithic packages for the Object, AWS, Azure, and GCP providers. It's been over a year since we switched to family providers, and most of the people we know about from our customers and prospects that we engage with are on the family providers. And from the stats we can see from the outbound marketplace as well, it is time to move on from those big ones. And that's it from provider world.
Awesome, John. Thank you very much for those updates there. And then, another reminder or encouragement for anybody wanting to get more involved in providers. The specific SIG Object meeting here that we've linked to is very useful for that. So feel free to get involved and attend there too.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes, Blake.
On the singleton change, the storage version for the MRs are still V1 beta 1. What is the plan to move that to storage version being V1 beta 2? And I guess why was V1 Beta 2 not the storage version?
I recall a conversation like this, but I don't recall the details now. I'm going to have to defer to somebody a little bit more knowledgeable on this topic. I think maybe that's a good one to just post in the SIG channel. Just ask that question, then I'll ask one of the folks to respond on it.
Thank you.
Blake, not only do you have good ideas, but you've also got good questions. All right. Sweet. So then let's move on to the community topics section here. As always, we've got a bunch of cool content from recent Crossplane talks, blog posts, videos, etc. Something that I was not really aware of, or I didn't, maybe I saw it in different pieces, but then saw it all together today, is that the recent Platform Con 2024 had 3 different talks all about Crossplane at it. So I've added links to the pages and the videos for all those talks there that people can catch up on if you weren't able to attend that specific conference. If folks have other pieces of content, feel free to add them to this this list here. And we talked about functions to GA already, so we can go ahead and keep moving past that, I think. Sweet. So that brings us to the Linux Foundations Mentorship Program. We had talked about this last time in that we were doing this. We were going to participate this year or this summer. We have a project available, et cetera. We were taking applications, et cetera. So I wanted to announce then that we have officially started the term 2 for the Linux Foundation Mentorship Program this year. And NS is our lucky mentee who had the the best application and the best chances for success, both with his growth and contribution to the project as a whole. So NS, do you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
So hi everyone, my name is Enes, as Jared stated. I'm currently working on the validate subcommand. Hopefully we will promote it to GA in this summer term. So for those of you who are curious about how I'm related to Muaffaq, he is my brother, an older brother. So that's it. Nice to meet you all.
Nice. Yeah, so this might be the first case we have of like generational contributions to the project, which is pretty cool, seeing that over the years.
I don't know, because we have Hassan and Fatih as well, right? So
That's true. That's true. Yes, I misspoke. I'm sorry. So, well, Turkey is killing it then with like entire families getting involved in the project. Love it. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna we've already made a ton of progress. Well, okay. When I say we, I mean NS. I'm not gonna steal your progress, dude. NS has made a ton of progress already and already has a PR that's open in the first week of his efforts here with us. So that's super cool. And it covers. I'm just gonna bring this up because I think it's actually really cool. It covers what I feel like is a major gap that we had in the validate command already, where now this catches all types of unknown fields, essentially. So if you're asking the validate command to validate some resources maybe you generated with the render command, if you have typos or if you've got YAML indentation issues or all sorts of classes of mistakes that people make all the time, this command essentially this PR adds logic to catch all of that stuff now. So that's a major improvement to the experience of the validate command, with way more to come that folks can track in essentially 5322 and then 5094 is we hope to get through all of that this summer together. And we're off to a really good start with the momentum there. So let's keep up the good work, dude. All right. So next thing here. Me and Victor Farchik, you all may know him. We are doing a webinar on Tuesday, so less than a week from now. So on this coming Tuesday, we'll be doing a webinar at 8 a.m. And we're going to basically be going through live all of the features from the last release, 1.16. So we'll be showing new features. We'll be doing demos, kind of walking through all that stuff, answering questions and stuff. So if you want to get more of an understanding of like what the features on 1.16 looks like beyond just blog posts and stuff, and see it live in action and interact with with us, that sounds like a super fun idea to me. We're also going to be doing a section about contributing to Crossplane as well. We talk about making Crossplane easier to contribute to, helping and enabling and empowering contributors, all that stuff. So there will be a section on that that helps people get started with getting more involved in the project. So here's a link in the agenda doc if folks want to register for it that haven't already. So we hope to see you there in 5 days from now or so, something like that. Cool. All right, just a quick note for KubeCon in Salt Lake City coming up in November this year. The regular call for proposals, the CFP, is already closed, but there still is the co-located event. Proposals are open for another 2 weeks or so until July 14th. I thought that was closed as well, but it is not. It is open. So if folks want to submit an idea to Platform Engineering Day specifically is the most relevant one for this group, that is open for 2 more weeks. And just ping me if you want a review on any of your proposals as well. I believe it's totally reasonable and a lot of people are doing it. If you submitted something to the main KubeCon event that is also relevant to Platform Engineering Day, you can go ahead and resubmit it to there as well and have it in both places. I think that's totally fine and even encouraged perhaps. All right. Final note I had in the agenda doc here. I talked about this a little bit with Nick yesterday, but I thought it was interesting. So I really wanted to see if anybody here had experience with it or opinions on it already. But the CNCF has a number of benefits for all of their member projects. And the latest one that I saw is that they're giving basically pro accounts to any of CNCF projects that want to start using Dosu. I think maybe I'm saying that right, maybe I'm not. But essentially, it looks like Dosu is like an AI teammate that can kind of stand in as like a first line triager maintainer type of thing to be able to triage issues, give some early responses on them, maybe point to documentation, add labels, blah, blah, blah. It seems like it would do some useful stuff to help us keep up with the backlog of issues and community activities, kind of, bolster the efforts of the maintainer team. So I'm excited about that, but I'm also a little, cautious of how effective this AI tool might be if it can maybe cause more harm than good, if it's really actually that useful. So if folks have checked out Dosu before and have an opinion on it, please do share it with me because I'm considering adding this. But I'm always a little suspicious of these robots at first. I'll just say that. John, you're super up to date on everything in the AI space. You know every AI tool. Do you know this one already, dude?
I don't, but this one, I had a look at it when you mentioned it the other day, and it looks promising. I think it's all going to come down to how trustworthy it is in the end and useful. So, but I don't think we'll know until we try it. These things are getting better and better. And we can just as well make peace with our future overlords so long.
I don't know, man. I'm still resistant. I fear for the future. But yeah, this looks pretty useful. So we might take it for a spin. I think a lot of it comes down to also is there kind of a spectrum of engagement with it? Like, do you turn it on and it just starts doing everything, or can you turn it on and just say, hey, just look at these type of issues or do this type of behavior? Don't do everything all at once. Like, help me build confidence in you over time. But yeah, if we get some time, that might be interesting to look at because it could just make us overall more effective with keeping the community healthy and going and helping the maintainer team that doesn't always have a ton of time, right? So, okay, cool. If anyone has other opinions, feel free to share them with me though. And that's everything I had on the agenda list today. Were there any other things that folks wanted to bring up that did not make the doc yet?
I did.
Yes, go for it.
So I've been using Crossplane for a while, and I just had a quick query regarding whether Crossplane supports Firebase. So one of the things that needs to be done is, even if I don't see any specific provider within the GCP family where you can enable a new data store, which is pretty much Firebase itself, or enable Firebase internally. So is there something which I'm missing? Or I'll need to create a new provider?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but it sounds like you already searched for it, right? And if you didn't find it, then that likely means it doesn't exist yet. Got
it.
Yep. So for a lot of those cases, two options. One is, opening an issue on the GCP provider to kind of make that known that the community has demand for it, and see if other people are interested in it as well. And then also the second thing I would say is that we've been doing a lot of effort recently on improving the documentation and the experience for community members to, add support for new resources themselves, and really encouraging folks to do that as that experience continues to get better and more easy. As A, it's a great way to get involved, but then B, it's a great way for people to unblock themselves and kind of help scale this whole thing. So, if you're interested in it, then, taking that on to, add the support and get some guidance from the team while you're doing that could be a great way to take this on as well.
Absolutely. So I am definitely interested in doing that, but do I just begin with the provider template, or is there any other document which shoots me in the right direction?
Yeah, so the documentation for it is in here in the object repository of the Crossplane repo here. That's where all the docs are stored. And so I'm not familiar with the organization of GCP and Firebase, if it's like literally a separate thing or if it's just part of GCP, I don't know. But
it's part of GCP.
Great. Then that's basically this one here, this configuring a resource. Because like if you need to do a whole provider, there's the generating a provider documentation. If you just adding a new resource to an existing one, then there's a document for that as well.
Jared?
And yes, sir.
Awesome.
Rather pointing to the PR with the updated documentation.
Yeah.
The improved. No, it's not that
this
one.
one.
That one there.
There we go. So let's get this captured.
Awesome.
That one
Would you be able to post
should
this
get
in
merged
chat?
by tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so interestingly, there's a Firebase rules provider, and I'm just
Yeah.
looking at it, and
So there is a Firebase rules provider, and there is a data store provider which you can create new indexes with, but you can't enable the data store or create a new data store itself. So it's a couple of steps ahead, but the base layer is not supported.
right, got it. Okay.
Yeah. And the second one was there is a provider Cloudflare. So technically speaking, I found provider Cloudflare, which is 3 years old in Crossplane contrib, and it doesn't look like it's really still supported, but I just wanted to confirm that too. And if it is not, then maybe, that's the next one I start working on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's probably the right case there, that we can, like, a lot of times, for community driven providers, like an effort gets started about it, but then people may move on to other things. In that case, I think Yortis is actually another great example of that, where you kind of it was very motivated to have DigitalOcean provider be more up to date and more actively maintained, and then like kind of took it on his shoulders there to essentially do that work and get that provider going again. So like when we see stuff like that amongst the whole Crossplane community, like that's the kind of thing I love to see, is that all of us working together to unblock each other. So with the Cloudflare one specifically, if it hasn't been touched in a number of years, then that's a good sign that it's definitely not actively maintained. But we can, and you can reach out to me for any time as well, to so we can get in touch with who the maintainers were, just to make sure, check in with their intentions, see if they have some time to come back to it, let them know there's some demand. And if not, then we could take steps to kind of support the community effort for reviving it or a new one or whatever.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'll reach out to you separately for the provider Cloudflare, and if it turns out that it is something which is deprecated for them, then I'm happy to either start a new repository or try and take that repository from where it is, because I do think a lot of the base layer has been completed by them. It's just that it's not really integrated with the new way how Upbound or Crossplane does things in terms of importing your libraries or providers.
Yep, I can imagine that if it's old. Yep. Yortis, did you have something to add to that, man?
Yeah, I think sometimes it depends on what we want to get out of as a community because Object made it really simple for me to do the DigitalOcean. No way I wouldn't done it with the old one because it's way too much work for things. So I don't know if that one is already in Object, but I would say, Crossplane as, as an organization, like what's gonna be your stand with the existing one versus the Object situation? Because picking from an outsider, like, yeah, Object is way easier pass once you get you nail down the setting up the tools and whatnot, and you only focusing on wiring the Terraform object resources. It's much easier.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. And that's, a major reason why like such an investment was put into those so that we have like accelerated pathways to get providers and resources supported in the community. That's a good point.
So, if I may, hey, so it's been a while, Dan from SAP.
Good to see you, Dan.
And my teammate Henry's on the call here, and I think this is a good segue, if it's all right. He's trying to work on the community provider for AliCloud. And so he's got a pull request, he's got things updated and working. But yeah, the maintainers seem to be MIA. So we're hoping we can get some of your help, perhaps, Jared, moving things forward. So maybe if you could, I think Henry might have tried pinging you already. But maybe if you can watch for another ping from him, maybe later today, in Slack, and he can point you at his pull request and give you some background about what's going on there. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that from a couple weeks ago or sometime recently when we were kind of talking about, hey, like we want to make some progress on this, and then kind of, hey, let's like reach out to Will and see if like he's around or wants to get involved. If we haven't heard anything from him, then we kind of start looking at what are the next options for moving forward to have the velocity here. So yeah, feel free to ping me again, and we can kind of look at it and make some decisions.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It would be great to get some like processes around that because it happened to me as well in DigitalOcean. I keep pinging the person and the person was not part of DigitalOcean. Then what do I do? Is for the most part the big the question.
Yeah, that's a good point because like we did something with the GCP provider, and we went through a process, and it worked out, right? Like I ended up being added as maintainer. And this is the community provider, and so it all worked out. And so when Henry here was starting in on the AliCloud effort, and we were talking to our mutual manager about the whole thing, it's my recommendation was, well, A, have patience, and B, let's just assume it's all going to play out in the same way as it did with GCP, which so far it has. And what was that playing out? Okay, try to reach the maintainers, don't get anywhere, try to get some attention on Slack, not getting too much attention on Slack. So, okay, make a point of attending the next community call. Here we are. And, and then it's okay, yeah, it looks like we're going to have a path forward here, and so on. So, I assured my manager that, things were going to play out like this, but it would have been nice if I could have just pointed to, I don't want to say a formal process, but, just basically this is how it plays out, written down, from Upbound or, Crossplane, so that, for particularly, the managers that are and project managers that, they may have some concern about having their developers, going off down this path, and is it going to go anywhere? Should we not do the community, contribute to the community, but should we just like our own private repository? It would be great if there was just something written down that a developer could point a manager at or a project manager at and say, look, this is kind of how it unfolds. Don't worry about it. Just let's assume it's all going to work out. We'll contribute to the community provider, and that is best for everybody. That it's going well. whether it's community provider or one of the object provider, but we're going to contribute to the open source world versus doing some private thing. That's best for everybody.
Yeah, Dan, I think that's a really good attitude to have, man. And so yeah, this makes a lot of sense because we've seen it. People have had to go through this this experience. I'm not going to call it a process, right? Because we haven't really defined it.
Experience.
So people have had to go through this experience before people are asking about it. So I think that's very reasonable. Of kind of getting something together that would help us navigate this a little bit better, or have some precedents in place, or some guidance for folks. So I opened up another window here. Maybe it was shared, maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. But I added to the steering committee meeting agenda, the next one that we have. I think it's in 2 weeks from now or so. But just a reminder, basically, to like talk with the rest of the steering committee about that, see if there's something we can put in place. Maybe I'll be able to make some progress on it before that. But for like a general process, but at least I have a reminder for next time steering committee meets, we'll talk about this and we'll share some updates.
A thought, just because I've been going through the process of trying to get the government rebates for some heat pumps we just had installed, and a thing that I experienced while doing that is through like some of the like assessment agencies, and like not the government themselves, but some of the other people that we've had to interact with in the process. Nearly every other communication, like after a milestone, is something of the form, what you can expect next, not a commitment, like not this is the process, like for sure. No, this is just what you can expect. Maybe a little blurb like that somewhere would be enough, right? So again, to make the management type people more comfortable with letting their devs go off and contribute.
I do wonder whether to a certain extent people fall back to provider Terraform when a particular provider kind of doesn't really have traction, or it kind of gets old. Like, for example, provider Cloudflare, if no one is using it, then I wonder whether you would go to provider Terraform in order to perform those same actions. So I do wonder whether the community is going in that direction too, if a particular provider doesn't exist or things like that.
Yeah, I can tell you that at least internally, we had someone else, they went off and chose to go down the Terraform path. But then those of us that were more involved in using Crossplane, we decided to not follow up on that. And we just set that aside because, like, what, we're uncomfortable with Terraform. And just in general, we're wanting to keep that as far away as possible. And also, I guess this is because we have some senior developers on the team. We're much more comfortable with human written code. It's like, if you come up with a good framework of code yourself, you end up being happier than trying to live with machine generated stuff a lot of the time. So yeah, we set the whole Terraform thing aside and went down the path of using this community provider, which is not the Alley Cloud one, that's not based on Terraform. But it's like, yeah, someone did exactly that. They did look at it, but then some senior people decided, no, let's not do it in our case. So it did happen.
Nice. Yeah, so thanks everybody for sharing these perspectives on this. And I see a definite need here, especially as we continue to scale the community, right? So like, these are good examples of ways that we can facilitate and unblock the community as a whole to just be more productive as a whole too, right? So this is really good stuff. So we'll follow up on this one for sure. Cool. All right. So yeah, were there any other agenda topics that folks wanted to bring up before we adjourn for the week?
I can wait after the recording.
Sorry, Eurydice, say it again.
I can wait after the recording unless you don't have anything else. So.
Nope. I think there's nothing else there.
I may have one quick question there. I created an issue in here for Crossplane. And I guess one thing I'm trying to do is if you're not aware, Canoe is a organization that has like AWS, Twilio, so on and so forth. But they have a tool called IDP Builder. And one of the functionalities that it provides now is a OCI server that runs on a local Kubernetes environment. And what I want to be able to do kind of as a person who builds my own composition functions is be able to deploy my function pointing to that local Gidia server and be able to pull that image. One problem I'm seeming to run into though is Gidia doesn't run on 443. And so when Crossplane tries to actually unpack that package, it's unable to. It essentially throws a connection error. So I didn't know if this was like right now Crossplane assumes that packages are going to be sitting at port 443 and that's the error, or if there's something else going on. And really the idea I have for this is kind of more so like for my own internal end-to-end testing, I want to be able to run on my local machine to say like, my composition function actually works as I expect.
Yeah, good question, Blake. That's I don't actually know. I remember seeing this
So,
issue opened. Hey, Dan?
Yeah, I might have something that I can share in this. I'm not. I'll share it, and you can decide whether it's actually relevant or not. But we, the team I'm on, we don't own the clusters where Crossplane is being deployed. That's managed by some other group, and we're on AWS and GCP and Azure, and so we've got this situation where the folks that are in charge of the clusters on AWS, they've set it up so Kubelet has whatever credentials are needed for image pulling, and they don't share those credentials. This is not like in Azure and GCP, this isn't the case. They, the people running the clusters make the secrets needed for pulling images available to us so that like in our Helm charts, we can reference those secrets and so on, but not in AWS. So we hit this problem where, the Crossplane core, it can't pull the packages, right? And so what we've resorted to doing is we build our own Docker image with Crossplane as the base, and then we add an init container, which to the Crossplane Helm chart, which it's copying the packages which are baked into our image into the cache directory, the package cache at Crossplane core, and then in the provider config for the package references, it's the like pull never or something like that, right? But we're having to hack around this situation where in AWS on these clusters that are managed by whomever, we can't programmatically pull down images. We have to do these kinds of hoops. So I don't know, maybe you're
and the thing that's interesting too is Uptest does the same exact thing you described. Uptest also essentially, when you build the images, it pulls them into the Crossplane pod and then has essentially image pull never. So it's doing the same thing. So I think it would be really interesting to also kind of upscale Uptest as well to have this kind of configuration available. Because the nice thing about the Gidia server and the way it's configured is the image pull secrets, like Kubernetes can already pull the image. The problem is Crossplane is like unable to pull the image, even though like it should just be able to because the node can be able to. So there's almost got to be a way like in providers or in packages to essentially say like Crossplane, just don't worry about any of the metadata, just essentially deploy the image and let it run as like a function or as a provider or this sort of stuff.
Definitely something that let's say a repeatable pattern would instead of like we went through this, it was a voyage to discover, we did some solutions, someone else has done it. It would be nice if there was a at least a documented like here's a workaround for a situation, like something in an FAQ, right? Like here's a problem you may hit, here's the the way you can get around it. And if there's some tooling around that, people could latch onto as well, that would be great. But it's, yeah.
I think Crossplane can fix this, though. I think is my opinion. Like, I think Crossplane should allow us to run, providers built locally or functions built locally or functions, deployed onto an OCI registry that it like may not have all the metadata or that it can't pull metadata from, and it should still be able to deploy those things. I think my thought on it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe something clever could be done with like, what, I can program as long as I have the right role permissions, I can spin up an ephemeral container on my own pod. And if you set up an ephemeral volume in advance where, okay, that ephemeral container, you can get the package metadata out of there through the volume, then maybe there's a way you could sort of sidestep this situation, but without radically changing how things work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so try to drive this to closure as we're running out of time. I'm curious, like it's not clear to me if this is just like a networking connectivity problem of, hey, we can like this particular, the library, like the Go Container Registry library, doesn't have the knowledge to be able to make this network connection to this particular endpoint you're giving it, or if I heard you guys talking about like, metadata missing and stuff too, or if there's like, hey, this package or this registry doesn't respond with the right metadata, like network connectivity is cool, but the right metadata isn't coming back over for the package manager to understand that, hey, this is a well-shaped package and I can download this. It sounds like maybe there's two separate things there. And if one of them, if they're both true, then like it sounds like those should be addressed, but I don't know the full problem space here to understand how to attack this.
Yeah, I think I can probably add some more to the issue too.
Yeah. But yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Blake. If you could add some more details that to this issue here, then we can be able to kind of think through it a little more.
It's 798. Okay.
5798. Yeah.
Okay, 579. So I'll take a look at that as well, and if there's anything I can contribute, I'll add a blurb in there as well.
Awesome, Dan. Yeah. More information on that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to just say, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Eski. When you said package pull secret, never. The problem is you still need to update the Crossplane provider pod. You need to update the Crossplane pod to then mount your, image into the, into the pod. So ideally, in a idealistic world, I would love to never be able to, or be forced to update the Crossplane pod, and it should just be able to kind of reference everything. But
okay, got it.
Well, and Jonas, do you want to make another comment here right before we close it down for the day?
Yeah, just I know somebody helped me in a Slack, but I want to add the integration of the Kubernetes into the digital. Like when I provision the DigitalOcean Kubernetes cluster, I want to be able to do GitOps. So I need to be able to connect the resource of the DigitalOcean into something else, ? That doesn't allow me to, what would be the name? Download the manifest or whatnot. Is there any way to do that? Or like a documentation about it?
Is this more like a general question, Jonas, about like setting up GitOps with Crossplane providers?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I want to wait until like official thing is done. I don't want to waste the time.
Yeah. I think I might be able to find some resources on that one. So if you want to, I have a couple unread messages that I haven't caught up with, but if you want to send me a quick ping on that one to remind me about looking for where to find that information, I'll try to follow up on that like pretty soon, man.
Okay, that's good.
Great, awesome. All right, let's go ahead and close it out for the week then. Thanks everybody for all the all the good discussion and engagement. It's super good to hear everyone's opinions and connect with all of y'all today. So yeah, we will connect again next month.
Ciao, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, folks.
You all guys.